If you feel like you've tried everything for your child's ADHD and what you've tried hasn't worked, or at least hasn't worked long term, it might be because you were given the wrong strategy. Maybe you've tried therapy, diet shifts, supplements, medications, maybe every parenting book under the sun, and still the meltdowns, the school calls, the outbursts, and the guilt continue. That's because almost every traditional approach focuses on managing symptoms, not solving the underlying stresses in the body. Now, what I'm about to walk you through is the exact 3-step blueprint I used to help my own son and now over 1,500 other families dramatically reduce ADHD symptoms naturally, without meds and without having to second guess every decision you make. If you're new here, I'm Donna K. I'm a board certified health and nutrition practitioner and founder of the ADHD Thrive Institute. This work is deeply personal for me because my own son was once struggling just like yours might be. When he was first diagnosed with ADHD, I felt so much relief because that diagnosis reassured me that his ADHD symptoms weren't my fault. It wasn't bad parenting. It wasn't something I was doing wrong. And honestly, I thought medication would fix it all. At first, medication did help. He stopped hitting his baby brother. Our home was a little bit calmer for a little while. But that calm didn't last. The doctor increased the dose, then added a second medication to deal with the side effects of the first. And soon, everything spiraled. For our family, the medications didn't work. In fact, they made things worse. So today, I want you to know something. There is another way. There's a way to reduce ADHD symptoms naturally without adding more meds. And with the 3-step blueprint I teach, families see results in weeks, not years. Families like Dara, who used this method to help her daughter Reese get rid of her massive meltdowns, help her become independent, and most importantly, happy and thriving. It's the same blueprint that Christy used to help her teenage son get to a place where their family is no longer walking on eggshells daily, where her son actually feels better, understands his body better, and they see his light again. Christy has even been able to take him off one of his ADHD meds completely and lower the other one to the lowest possible dose. And it's the same method that Renee used to help her son Levi get to a place where he now has eye contact. His OCD is gone and he's using his words rather than hitting or having rage issues, but also that he is completely off 4 medications that he was on. That alone was probably enough, but Levi was probably the worst picky eater that I had come across, with only eating 5 foods, but now he eats over 200 foods after using this 3-step blueprint. So by the end of this video, you are going to have a much better understanding of what the 3-step blueprint is to help your child with ADHD thrive. I'm going to walk you through it step by step right now, so make sure and stick around for all of this video so you don't miss any of the 3 steps. I've also got an opportunity for you to get even more personalized free support. I'll share more about that in just a moment, so don't go anywhere. Now, I want to hear from those of you tuning in. If you've ever thought, we've tried everything and nothing works, go ahead and drop a yes in the comments below. I want you to know you are not alone. I've been there. And I remember this one time I was in Costco and my son wanted to eat a snack before we had paid. I said no, and this resulted in the biggest meltdown I have ever seen. Just picture 2 glass pasta sauce jars smashed all over the floor. And I was mortified. I was so embarrassed, and I knew there had to be a better way. And that's when I started the journey that got me to where I am today. It sent me back to school, to my holistic health degree, multiple certifications in this specialty. And today, my son is thriving in high school. He hasn't been on medication for years. He is doing awesome. But most importantly, he's happy. My whole family is happy, and our house is calm and peaceful. And you know what? I actually really like him as a human being. And I'm telling you this because I want you to know that I've been there. I have felt all the feelings, and I'm going to share the 3-step blueprint that will guide you to reduce your child's ADHD symptoms so they can thrive. There is hope, things can improve. I just want you to imagine for a minute, what would life look like when you can actually wake up in the morning without dreading the day ahead? When your child asks to go out and you don't actually pause, scared about what tantrum or meltdown will occur when you go out. When you are planning a holiday, you finally get excited, that excited feeling because you are no longer worried about how the change in routine will affect your child's mood that once used to ruin every single vacation. And when you can finally breathe a sigh of relief that your child is actually happy to go to school and now has friends. These are really important thoughts and goals to have, and these aren't all fluffy, unattainable dreams. These are all the real things that we want, that families I work with tell me that they want. They are attainable and they can become your reality. But the only way to get there is to address what's really going on in your child's body. Not the symptoms, but the underlying stresses. The truth is, symptom management is not the same as healing. The old ways of trying to reduce your child's symptoms don't work because we are only seeing and treating the symptoms and we're not digging deep into the root cause of the problem. You know, a blanket one-size-fits-all prescription doesn't address what each unique child needs. And also a lot of the strong drugs that are being prescribed to our children can often have negative effects on children's developing brains and growing bodies that can affect them for the rest of their lives. We need to really question, do the positives outweigh the risks of these strong medications? Now, before going any further, I do want to say that I'm not totally against medication. It definitely has its time and place, but it should not be the first port of call when a child is diagnosed, not when there are other effective ways to support ADHD that are sometimes as effective or even more effective than medication. And it should not be the first port of call when we haven't considered any other potential underlying hidden stresses in the body. Now, as I mentioned earlier, my son was diagnosed with ADHD at the age of 4, and after spending probably about $4,000 and multiple visits with a neurodevelopmental psychiatrist, he was immediately prescribed medication. And I filled that prescription because I had no idea that there were multiple causes to ADHD symptoms, and I thought medication was the only way to treat it. Most of the families I work with don't realize that. There are multiple causes of ADHD. You need to know this before making any decisions. Something is causing your child's ADHD symptoms or exacerbating, and it could be multiple things. Those causes need to be addressed because if not, you will continue on the roller coaster that you're currently on. Now, I want to back up just a bit here. I want to share something that totally shocked me about my son's genetics. We did genetic testing on him years later, and based on his gene mutations, it clearly said you do not carry the genetic profile most often associated with ADHD tendencies. What? I mean, are you serious? My son was diagnosed with ADHD, but doesn't carry the genetic profile. So what was causing all of these symptoms? The report goes on to say, however, it is still possible that you display tendencies based on your lifestyle and your environment. Double OMG. If only I knew that when he was first diagnosed, I could have taken a completely different approach from the get-go. But I didn't know this. I wasn't told this, and I am sure there are many of you watching today that haven't been told this either. But I also went on to learn by certification in this area that even if you do carry the genetic profile, there are still most likely other root causes contributing to symptoms that we need to target in order for that child to thrive naturally. So I say all of this just so that you can know you do have options. Medication is not the only way, and in my experience and professional opinion, it's not the best way either. Now it's time to throw out the old way of doing things where we're just managing symptoms and instead start doing things a new way. The old way of doing things is gone. Now think of your child's symptoms like a fire. When a house fire breaks out and the emergency responders arrive on scene, they don't aim their hoses at the smoke. They aim them at the fire. They know that if they get the fire out, the smoke will eventually dissipate. Now, it's the same way with our health. If we aim for the fire, in our case, the underlying stresses in the body, the smoke, aka the symptoms, will eventually dissipate. But if all we do is flood the smoke with water, we're never actually even touching the problem below. The old way of doing things is to aim the water at the smoke and ignore the fire beneath. But what I'm sharing with you today is a way to aim the water at the fire beneath instead. Let's stop shooting water at the smoke and start getting to the underlying issues so we can finally put out that fire and we can rebuild that house. Now let's dive into the 3-step blueprint. Step 1 is to reduce. This step is all about reducing inflammation in the body. Now the World Health Organization ranks chronic inflammatory diseases as the greatest threat to human health. Years of research conclude that chronic inflammatory diseases are the most significant cause of death in the world. So what is inflammation? Inflammation is the response by the body's immune system to fight off infection, heal a damaged tissue, or clean out toxic substances and pathogens. Now, it's normal for the body to induce inflammation in certain cases, such as when we have a cold or we get a cut on our finger. But when the inflammation is constant and ongoing, this is a sign that the body is in a major defense and cleanup mode. Now, I have this funny analogy I like to use to explain it. We all have a metaphorical trash can in our body. And as we go through our lives, the trash can gets filled up. It gets filled up with poor diet, toxic medications, too much sugar, bacteria, viruses, things like that. And just like with real trash cans, we're meant to empty the trash can regularly. So we put it out on the curb every Monday for the garbage truck to take away that trash. In our body, this process is called detoxification. Our body has detoxification pathways that clean out that trash, those toxins, those viruses, bacteria, and other foreign substances that can negatively affect our health. And what I've learned in helping over 1,500 children with ADHD, they can't effectively empty their trash can. And so what's happening to our kids is that trash just builds up too fast and isn't getting cleared out. They're not able to take it out to the curb on Monday to empty it because their detoxification pathways are compromised. And with compromised detoxification pathways, the trash overflows into the body and that causes inflammation. Their body and brain are in a very high state of inflammation, and that inflammation exacerbates ADHD symptoms. So we really need to reduce the load on the trash can and help them empty it. Years of research have identified some common signs and symptoms that develop as a result of chronic inflammation. We've got asthma and allergies, fatigue and insomnia, mood symptoms like anger, irritability, depression, anxiety, stomach problems like constipation, diarrhea, acid reflux, brain symptoms like brain fog, aka inattention, memory loss, skin conditions like rashes and eczema, frequent infections, body or joint pain, weight gain or loss. Tell me in the comments, do you or your child suffer from one or more of these symptoms? I know when my son was at his worst, he suffered from many of these. Now, you don't need to have all these symptoms to be suffering from chronic inflammation. So, what is one huge underlying reason for ADHD symptoms? Inflammation. And that inflammation is the result of high toxin exposure and compromised detoxification pathways. Now, this leads us to a few questions. How do we identify all these toxins? How do we reduce our child's exposure? How do we increase functioning of the detoxification pathways? And how do we reduce inflammation? Enter the 3-step ADHD Thrive blueprint. This is the key to your child's success. Now, as I said, the first step is to reduce inflammation. Now, you might be wondering, well, how do I go about doing this? In practical terms, how do I reduce inflammation? The first way to do this is to reduce or remove inflammatory foods. Some parents get a little bit nervous when I start talking about diet because their children are often picky eaters. So they worry that they won't be able to get their children to make dietary changes. Fortunately, we can start slow and small. We begin with a few easy swaps to certain foods. Now, for many of these kids, these substitutions, kids often like the new foods better than the old ones. We start by removing gluten, dairy, and soy from the child's diet. These are the foods that inflame the gut. And by the way, I know it can be tricky to do, and that is why I always provide parents with recommended food replacements, shopping lists, approved food brands, and easy recipes that kids will love. You can totally check out all my social channels for more information. Now, I remember doing it by myself, all alone, with lots of frustrating trial and error. I was always guessing what foods to remove and which ones to add. But for the families that we help, we remove all of the guesswork. And while dietary adjustments can feel daunting, it isn't as scary as it seems. Now then, after changing the diet, the next way to reduce inflammation is to identify other internal stresses that might be affecting the gut-brain connection. What the gut-brain connection means, if you're not familiar with it, is that in essence, our brains are deeply connected to our guts. And if our guts aren't functioning well, our brains won't be able to function well as well. 90% of serotonin and 50% of the body's dopamine is produced in the gut. And these neurotransmitters are the ones that help us manage emotions, balance mood, and help our cognitive function. Emotional dysregulation is a common symptom of ADHD, but many parents don't realize that this emotional dysregulation actually starts in the gut, where that serotonin and dopamine are being made. So the problem then is not the emotions themselves, but the fact that the correct amount of these vital neurotransmitters are not being made in the first place. So by working to improve gut health, many parents of children with ADHD find that the emotional dysregulation problems solve themselves. So compromised gut equals compromised brain. And this is why it's so important for us to reduce inflammatory foods and other toxins affecting gut health. And we do that with functional lab testing. Now, I've done a lot of videos with more details about functional lab testing, so I won't go into that detail here, but definitely take a look around this channel and check out the links in the video description if you'd like to learn more about it. But suffice it to say, functional lab testing is one of the best ways to really get to the bottom of what's causing inflammation in your child's body so that we're then able to target those stresses. So let's review. Step 1 of the 3-step blueprint is to reduce, and specifically reduce inflammation by cutting out highly inflammatory foods and reducing the overall toxic load and dealing with other factors that affect gut health. Once we begin removing what's harming their system, we then create space for healing. And that brings me to step 2, restore. Now that we've cleared that trash can out, it's time to restore what the body actually needs. Step 2 is all about providing nutrients and nourishment to the body so it can grow in a healthy way. If a child has any kind of nutritional deficiencies, we address that in 2 ways. First, we ensure that they get everything they need through a tailored nutrition plan. What most parents do is pin the tail on the donkey, guessing what foods to remove and what to add in. We use instead the ADHD Thrive method food pyramid, focusing on fresh, whole fruits and veggies, grass-fed animal protein, healthy fats, and so much more. Again, I've done many training on the food aspects of supporting kids with ADHD, so I'm not going to go into detail about that today, but you can definitely find those trainings right here on my YouTube channel. Now, another component to restoring the body is bringing in some ADHD-specific supplements. Depending on the child, you might need supplements for gut-brain connection, reducing inflammation, helping detoxification, because no matter how hard we try, we simply can't avoid all toxins in our life. Our kids will get exposed to toxins on a daily basis. Now, supplements can be very effective in restoring, but they can never be the be-all and end-all for ADHD symptoms. You can't supplement your way out of a poor diet or a body riddled with inflammation, so they are just one piece of the puzzle. However, as I always say, with supplementation, there is no one-size-fits-all approach either. Supplementation should be tailored to each individual in order to address specific internal healing opportunities and provide support. Some children are helped with nutritional supplements targeting certain vitamin and minerals. For others, it might show no effects. I also strongly recommend before considering supplementation that you address diet, reduce inflammation, and conduct specific functional lab testing to identify underlying stresses so you can know exactly what supplements to give your child so their brain and body is nourished, healthy, and strong. So a quick review. Step 1 is to reduce that inflammation. Step 2 is to restore, giving the body all those nutrients it needs to heal. Now, step number 3 is to renew. And this step is all about helping your child and your family stay regulated long term. We need to renew the body, the family, and the mind by focusing on sleep, by learning how to breathe for the brain, by promoting low stress and a calm environment in your house, and by focusing our parenting specifically to ADHD kids and doing it with a positive mindset so your child can start thriving. Because when your child's body is supported, their brain begins to thrive and you get to finally exhale. Now listen, I know this might sound like a lot, but it's actually easier than it seems at first glance. And we take it one step at a time. No need to change everything all at once. You want to follow a step-by-step approach and implement little by little to make it as easy as possible for you and your child. And when you do that, when you implement these 3 steps, you can get to a place where your child is thriving, just like my son Oliver and the over 1,500 other families we have worked with. But I also know that this journey is not easy, and it's definitely not easy doing it alone. I mean, the amount of money, time, and heartache that I experience, I don't want any other family to experience. But if you are confident that you can implement everything I shared with you today in your family's life, then that is so amazing. And I really, really want to wish you the best of luck on your journey. For me, honestly, it's about seeing all our children thrive in life. But if you know that you need support in implementing what I shared with you today, and you're not 100% confident that you can do it alone, then I can definitely help you. Heather is a perfect example of this. She wanted to help her son as he was always seen as the problem kid to outsiders and parents. He couldn't maintain eye contact, and she was picking him up from preschool at least 2 times per week because of his behavior. She knew she needed help from an expert, and in less than 2 months of working with me and my team and applying the 3-step blueprint I just shared, the changes in her son were amazing. He is getting awards on almost a daily basis. Multiple teachers are bragging on him, and they just can't believe the change. That is what's possible for you when you implement the 3-step blueprint I told you about in today's video. So if you're feeling like Heather, thinking that you need the support of a team who knows what they're doing, then the best way I can help you right now is by personally supporting each and every one of you if you need it. I've set aside some time for me and my team over the next week to speak with you personally, and we do that with a call called the ADHD Thrive Breakthrough Call. The link for that call is in the video description. Now, the first thing we'll do is we'll talk about your child's health history and what things you've tried in the past and why they haven't worked. Then we'll look at your goals for your child and for your family, why you want to reach them, and what might have prevented you from reaching them up until now. Finally, based on what we uncover in the first 2 steps, we will share a customized game plan specifically for your child to fight your child's ADHD symptoms with food and natural solutions. Now, of course, if you'd like our help, we can totally discuss what working together looks like. But regardless of whether you work with me or not, I want you to get to a good place with your child with ADHD. I want you to have hope for the future, and I definitely love to chat about some strategies to help you in this journey. So, if you're ready to get real answers for your child, to stop chasing symptoms and finally understand what's driving their ADHD, click the link in the video description to book your free ADHD Thrive Breakthrough Call. We'll take a look at your child's specific situation and help you create a plan that works. Now, if this video gave you clarity, offered you some hope, give it a thumbs up and subscribe for more support on your journey. I'm Donna K, and I'm here to help you help your child thrive. I'll see you in the next video.